It's Bouncy here. Balloon twisting is an art form done by performers for many years. You can make animals, swords, wands, hats. Hey, you can even make Hatsune Miku. Did you know that there's even balloon twisting competitions? Intense. But that got me thinking, where did this all start? Well, before balloons looked like we know them today, humans were using animal bladders instead of rubber. Yeah, that's right, animal bladders. Actually, Galileo even used a pig's bladder in an experiment to measure the weight of air by using it as a balloon. The understanding that animal bladders could hold air were used in many cultures as back as early as ancient Greece, and many indigenous tribes across the world use them, specifically for children to play with. But what about balloons as we know them now? How did that get started? Clowns aren't running around blowing up animal bladders, so how did we get to where we are now? Well, most clowns aren't running around blowing up animal bladders. But really, though, how did we get to where we are now? In 1824, a more modern rubber balloon was made by a man named Michael Faraday who was experimenting with hydrogen and other gases. The balloons that Faraday and others were making at this time came as two disassembled circles of rubber that you were expected to rub together until the rubber edges stuck together. Then you inflated it yourself. Meanwhile, the inside was soft and powdered and ready for inflation. Can you imagine a clown having to assemble a balloon before making a balloon animal? But that's just balloons. When did balloons become animals and art? When did balloons become stuff like E.T.? Like really, how did we get there? According to most sources, the Aztecs were way ahead of us. Sort of. They used the bowels of cats as sacrifices, but these bowels were cleaned and then turned inside out and sewn with vegetable thread. This vegetable thread was dried in the sun, and when it was turned inside out, it sealed the bowels. These bowels, once completely dried, were then twisted and blown into shapes. Then they were presented as a sacrifice. But neither those old-fashioned rubber balloons or animal bowels are used today, so the information we're looking for comes from a huge breakthrough made in 1931 when the Tillotson Rubber Company created the first modern latex balloon. This balloon was made with the sap of a rubber tree. Before that, making balloons was complicated and dangerous. The new balloon by Tillotson had a cat's face painted onto it and eventually printed, making it the world's first novelty printed balloon because it was also shaped like a cat. Today, we still use this method. The balloons we use are made of a natural rubber latex. This natural rubber latex comes from the sap of the rubber tree. Was I the only one who didn't know there was such a thing as a rubber tree? Well, this tree is called Hevea brasiliensis from Malaysia. The sap of this tree looks like milk. Once the sap is removed from the tree, this sap is called latex. And to make it into a balloon, curing agents, accelerators, oil, water, and even coloring is added. Next, the latex is put into an open tank and then a balloon mold to create the desired shape. But again, this still doesn't tell us where we get to the balloon animals. Who was the first person to start making balloon animals and not making animals out of animals? Sorry, people of the past. Well, I actually came across a small controversy. You see, Jolly the Clown, or Art Petrie, published a book in 1975 crediting this man, Herman Bonnert from Pennsylvania, as the first balloon twister. He gives a first-handed account of seeing Herman at a magician's convention in 1939. However, in the book, Manual of Balloon Modeling, Volume 1, it's mentioned that not just Herman Bonnert was seen making balloons at this time, so was a man named Henry Maar and another man named Frank Saccone. They were all doing this type of technique around the same time. So, although there's not a clear record of which person started balloon modeling, because we know some of their names, we know that balloon modeling, balloon magic, and balloon tricks were something that were starting to become popular at the end of the late 1930s. Through all my research, I couldn't find any clear-cut answers of who was the very first clown to mix balloon magic or balloon modeling with clowning. I couldn't find it anywhere, and I didn't understand the link. Until I did. I actually did find the first clown to mix balloon magic with their clown act. Henry Maar, the Sultan of Balloons. He was mentioned earlier. You see, he is one of the 3 people that is named as one of the originators of balloon twisting. He is an OG balloon twister. So much so that there's currently a debate on if he started it in the first place. Henry also worked under the name Hank the Clown, and he used his skills as a magician, mostly balloon magic, to bring light and joy to sick children. Here he is performing as Hank the Clown in a hospital. Henry was also on Bozo's Circus in 1977 with his son performing a balloon routine. He was very, very talented at balloon twisting. I cannot stress this enough. You can actually tell how he might be one of the originators just based on how talented he really is at this. I was so overjoyed when I figured out this link between clowning and ballooning, but I really need to shout out this channel, Larry Moss. This channel actually has an interview with Henry Maher's son, and that was how I was able to find the link, was when he started talking about his dad being Hank the Clown. This channel also talks about balloon twisting history and balloon twisting as an art form and competitions, all kinds of interesting stuff. So I'm going to give credit where it's due. Please check this out. Anyways, a huge difference in then and now when it comes to making balloon animals is also the use of the balloon pump. Do you remember back when I told you about the powder in the older balloons that you had to assemble yourself? Well, that powder is used today. It's talc powder. And if you know anything about talcum powder, you'd know this might cause a problem to modern balloon twisters. Modern balloon twisters use balloon pumps. And besides the obvious benefits, a huge one not many may talk about is that it helps you to avoid getting talc in your lungs. Talc in your lungs can rarely cause talcosis, and while there's only one current documented case of this, some suspect that many performers could have suffered from this in the past. It just hasn't been well documented or looked for. Instead, many clowns and performers have chalked it up to performing in the past due to repetitive exposure of large amounts of talc into the lungs. Actually, if you know anything about drag culture, you might have heard the term clown lung when watching a performer pat themselves into a cloud of powdered makeup, much like a clown does as well. Well, clown lung actually refers to talcosis because the powder from the makeup that they're putting on their faces, both clown and drag queen, is talc, which is the same powder inside balloons. So yeah, clown lung comes from talcosis. You can get clown lung from balloons, and you can get clown lung from makeup. Although it's very rare, it's still interesting to note the connection. But speaking of health risks, another one is actually inflating balloons with your mouth. It's actually really good to use a balloon pump. In the book, The Encyclopedia of Balloon Modeling, the author, George Sands, writes, "Health warning. Some artists have become partially blind from inflating balloons. He advises again to please use an air pump." Michael Floyd, who is a very popular balloon artist on YouTube, said in a 2014 video that he actually ruptured a blood vessel in his eye from mouth inflation. There is also a first-hand account online by a man with 35 years of balloon twisting experience that states that he's had crew members pass out and bang their head on the floor, needing to go to the emergency room from trying to mouth inflate balloons. So it's totally fine and recommended to use an air pump. You don't need to have superhuman lungs. So what have we learned today, folks? Well, we learned that balloons used to be made of animals before we made balloons into animals, and we learned that Henry Maar was the first balloon twister to combine clowning and balloon twisting. Thank you so much for learning with me. Bye!